Good Erev Chag Shavous. What a special time. The Hilki Yontif of Shavous. And though then it was with lightning and fire, it happens the same thing every year over and over again, even if we don't see the lightning and the fire. The Hilki Tzadikim see it, but what does it make a difference? I'm sure it makes a difference. And the holy people know what difference it makes. But what it should be doing to us, that's for every Yid. Hashem loves us so much, and the whole world was created for us to raise this world to its highest possibilities. I'd like to relate a number of Heilige Shavous stories so that we could see, first of all, like the Heilige Beisaron says, and all the Chassidish Sfarim say, that one must believe, Emunah Shlema. There were 13 fundamental steps of Emunah that the Heilige Rambam gave us, and anything that has to do with Emunah, with believe, means that it's of the utmost importance. This is what Yiddishkeit is about. So that one must believe that this year I will finally do complete tshuva and turn myself into a different person, a higher person, closer to Hashem, through joy and fire, which maybe those thunder and lightnings create. But the main thing is the fire and the joy and the love that Hashem has for us. Hashem, the creator of the world that created everything and anything, every human being, every tree, every animal, everything and anything in the world, chose us to be his special children. So that every single Yid, Shlomo Karliner said, the biggest sin a Jew could do is to forget that he's a Ben Melech, that he's a prince and princess. So, it was in the city of Shpala that the great Shpala Zayda lived, and the local Paritz was a horrible person. He only came to visit during the summer. He had a palace there for the summer with all the necessities, so to say. And during the year, he wasn't too kind to the Jewish innkeepers. And during the summer, when he was there, from day to day, they didn't know if he's going to take away all the inns, or if he's going to give it to them. Or Nebuch, he would come and just throw them out with the whole families in a split second and throw them into a dungeon because of some money they might owe him or because of a bad look they might have given him. And in many cases, Nebuch, leave them there to rot, as we know. So, not long after the Shpala Zayda moved to the city of Shpala, the village of Shpala, it was just getting worse and worse from day to day, from month to month. And the local innkeepers, simple, good people, hard-working people, trying to be Elach Yidin, worship Hashem and bring up the children the correct way, said to themselves, you know what, we heard about this Shpala Zayda, big tzaddik, who's known for his miracles, great student of the Baal Shem HaKadosh, the Heilige Baal Shem Tov, who's the outside of the Shavuos. Let's go to the Rebbe and we'll see what he could do for us. They go to the Rebbe, they write a kvittel. Shpala Zayda thinks and thinks and thinks. And he says, you know, I think you people have had enough. And I think it's time that the Paritz should hear the Ten Commandments, Sarsa Dibris. They looked at each other puzzled. What does the Rebbe mean? Of course, they wouldn't question him. And the Rebbe's thinking more and more. And finally he says, you know what? This Shavous, we're going to have a lot of chassidim, a lot of people coming, and the shul's not going to be big enough. Shavous morning, we'll move the shul out to in back of where the shul is, near that small mountain, but under the sky. And we'll have some special guests for the Aseres Hadibros, for the Ten Commandments. Our special guests will be a Paritz and all his cronies, and tell him that it'll be our honor to have him. Anyway, they go back with this offer to the mean Paritz, and he just thought that this would be the greatest theater he's ever seen in his life. Comes Erev Shavuos, the Rebbe comes, they set up all the chairs outside, and they had a special section for the Paritz with all his people, special cushioned chairs, and all the amenities, pas that's befitting for a Paritz. And him and his cronies are sitting there by the davening. They can't stop laughing, and all of a sudden it comes to the shira, the Azia Shir, and the Hedlika Shpalazeda shouts out, Tipal alei me mosav afachad, may it fall upon them an awesome fear. The Paritz and his people all of a sudden were frozen to their chairs. They couldn't move. They wanted to run out, but they couldn't. And the davening gets more and more joyous and serious, and Shema Yisrael, and finally it comes to the reading of the Aseres Hadibros, the Ten Commandments, and the Holy Shpala Zayda tells one of his trusted innkeepers, I give the honor of standing near the Paritz and his people and translating and explaining to him what each of the Ten Commandments means. Goes up there. Noichi Hashem Aleikecha, I am God, your God, that took you out of Egypt, says the Torah. And this innkeeper explains to the Paritz and his people, I am God, your God, Lo yeh lecha Elohim acherim, don't have any other gods. And the recent mandate that the Paritz gave out, that in all homes and especially houses of worship there should be a big picture of him because he is higher than everybody. All of a sudden, he started bawling, crying. And it goes on and on. Zachas Yom HaShabbos Kadsha, remember the Holy Shabbos. And the Paritz had recently made it a new law that all Jewish inns have to be open on Shabbos. And he explains to the Paritz, Hashem gave us the Holy Shabbos. And it goes on and on. By the end of davening, the Paritz and his people were very serious of some change that was going on which they themselves couldn't even understand. Comes after Yontif, and the Hedlika Shpala Zayda makes Havdalah for his people, and then he was going to see people, going to welcome people. People came in with a kvittel and with for a bracha, a blessing, or an advice, or whatever it might have been. And guess who's waiting online? The Paritz, right? He sat in the room with the Paritz for many hours, the story goes, and when he walked out, he went back home. The next morning, disappeared, and nobody knows where to. Some say that yes, he was Megaya, he converted to Judaism in some faraway country or so. But the Shpala Zayda said to his people, it's not such a laughing matter because he had the neshama of Yisrael. So all the evil things that he did was his rebellion against what he really wants to do. And this is why later his true neshama came out and he converted to Judaism. What a special story. Next story will be about how special Hashem loves us and how everything we do for Hashem, even if we, God forbid, might think it's small and it's not, by Hashem it's great. This story takes place in Lower East Side, maybe the early 60s, maybe the middle 60s, Lower East Side of Manhattan. And there was a fella, came from a non-religious family, but those days, maybe even today to a certain extent, everyone on Lower East Side spoke Yiddish, everybody was Jewish, or mostly everybody. And this fellow Joe finally got connected to Torah, Yiddishkeit, and started attending classes and whatnot, and went to Israel 2 years to study and to become a Yid fully, came back, and was a new person. One day his father says to him, his father was a man in the 80s, he was a young boy in the early 30s maybe. His father says to him, Joe, you know what? I have to tell you, you became a mensch. Everybody knows the word a mensch, right? You really became a mensch. After all the years, you sat at home doing nothing with your life, didn't want to go to school to get a degree, just hanging out. And you went to Israel and came back. You're up 6:30 in the morning. You go to your davening, come back, go to work like a human being, and you come back at night and study from that big book, that what you call the Talmud. Do me a favor, Joe. I want to study Talmud too. I'm also a Jew. And Joe says to his father, Pops, you know what? You're a man 83 years old. Very hard to study Talmud. This was pre-Art Scroll days. There were no translations. And his father says to him, you know what, Joe? I'm going to study Talmud, and you're going to teach it to me. Anyway, it took Joe a year to teach his father one blot Gemara, 1 page of Gemara. When they finished it, his father said to him, you know, what a special day. I studied 1 page of Gemara, Aramaic, and then the back and forth and the inside and out and the Rashis. I really did it. I'm going to celebrate. We're making a party for my black Gemara that I studied. And he says to his father, Joe says to his father, Pops, you know, we make parties when someone finishes a tractate of Gemara, which could be 75 pages, 175 pages, 1 page. His father was so sad to hear those words. But he said, anyway, we're going to celebrate. Ask your rabbi. And sure enough, Joe goes to the MTJ, Stifter Tiferet Yerushalayim, and asks Rav Feinstein, Rav Moshe Feinstein. And Rav Feinstein says, yes, he's right. A man at 83 that studied 1 page of Gemara, that was the first page he ever learned in his life and didn't know anything about anything. Is it his fault? It's a great accomplishment. You make the party and I'm coming to attend. Wow, Joe was blown away. Planned a big party, invited everybody, went to Williamsburg, to Mailmart. Those days Mailmart was new. Ordered barbecue chicken and, I don't know, 3 kinds of kugel and coleslaw and whatnot. Planned this big party, and the Rosh Hashiva came, Rav Feinstein came. Not only he came, but he also spoke, and he said, Kinderlich, what a special day, what a special day. Mr. So-and-so learned a page of Gemara. A man at this age, to make a cheshbon and to think, special person. The sad thing is, the next morning, he passed away. Joe was broken. Of course, his father passed away, but it was even more broken realizing that he didn't evaluate who his father was. And he went to the yeshiva. They planned an Orthodox funeral for him. And Rav Feinstein came to the funeral and he spoke. And he said, nobody knows why we come to this world. That's the reason why we have to adhere to everything that the Torah tells us. Every halach in Shulchan Aruch, every custom, every minig, every mitzvah is very, very special to Hashem. So while there might be one Yid whose business and whose job it is to finish many tractates of the Gemara, but there are some neshamas that all they need is one page of Gemara to bring them to where they belong. Obviously that Mr. So-and-so is one of these pure, holy souls. What a story. How we should appreciate how much Hashem loves and appreciates every quote-unquote small thing we do for Him. Next story. Erev Shavous today is the yahrzeit of the Heilige Reb Velvel Tamer, who was a student of the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh. And Shavous itself is the yahrzeit of both King David and the Holy Baal Shem Tov. So we'll start with Reb Velvel Tamer, since today's his yahrzeit. Reb Zev ben, I don't know his father's name. So the Heilige Reb Velvel Tamer had a daughter that was ready to get married, looked all over. He finally heard that in a certain city, there's a fellow that has a very good son. Humble guy, fine, midas, very fine character, chasidish shabacha, good learner. So he decided that he and his family, the Rebbetzin and the children, and some of his chassidim will take a trip to that city. That city was none other than Apta, the city where the Apta Rav lived. Remember the Apta Rav, Rabbi Avram Yeshua Heschel, the author of the Sefer Ohev Yisrael, one of the greatest Gaonim of his time in learning, one of the greatest Bali Kabbalah, and one of the greatest Chassidish Rebbes. He was a student of the Rebbe Rabbi Elimelech, Lezhenska's Chosei Ogen Olim. They traveled to Apta. They come to the city and they stayed in an inn, not to make too much noise. And the Rebbe came into the city with his daughter and a few people, asked around about this person. It was very interesting. Whoever he asked about the person would say the son is a very, very special boy. But the father, I don't know, like they say in Israel, kacha kacha, And there was something there and he couldn't understand what the story was. So finally he asked one person, listen to me, Rebbe, everybody's giving me the same story. You seem to be somewhat of an honest person. What's the story? So he says, Rebbe, I'm sorry to tell you, but a number of years ago, this man was caught doing something very, very not nice. And he really made himself a black name in the community. I don't think it would be the correct thing for someone of your stature, Tamer Rebbe, to make a shidduch with him. The Heilige Reb Velvel Tamer starts thinking and he says, I'm sorry to differ with you. When I gave this man shalom, I felt from heaven an unbelievable love and yedidus between he and I. And I know I can't be wrong. Everyone has to know who they are and what their level is on. And so I trust my Ruach HaKodesh. I also trust that before I leave this city with my beautiful daughter and family and make the shidduch, we'll all find out the truth and we'll be happy that we made the shidduch. Okay? Ian says, Rebbe, I have nothing to add. And sure enough, they make the shidduch, there's a big vart, and Chassidim come from Zhetama to Apta, and it's great joy. After the party, the Heilig Reb Velvel Zhetama says to his wife and children, to the Chassidim, you know what? This is the Apta Rav city. Let's go visit the widow, the holy Rebbetzin Apta, Rebbetzin Heschel, just to give her mazel tov. We have to respect her. And as they come into the apartment where the Rebbetzin lived, into the house where the Rebbetzin lived, she comes running towards the Reb Velvel Zhetama and she says, welcome, welcome, mazel tov, mazel tov. Reb Velvel Zhetama, you are a tzaddik hadar and a great gaon in your learning. And he stands there and he says, what? What's that all about, Rebbetzin? And she says, I'll tell you what it's about. It was 20 years ago, when I was standing by this window with my husband, should be in Gan Eden, should be a good Tibeta, and we saw something very horrible. Your future mechutin, as